strong, empowered, authentic.
What's up, Ginger Nation? This is Tosh.
This is Darren, and you are listening to the Authentic
Ginger Podcast. Welcome, Ginger Nation. I'm Tosh Taylor.
And I'm Darren Roach, and on today's show, we have a very special guest, an award-nominated stand-up comedian, as well as a dynamic keynote speaker. Jen Grant is a storytelling comedian who writes material about life and relatable topics, which will have you laughing in no time. Welcome to the show, Jen Grant.
Thank you. Hold your applause.
I like to say that is a giant cup of coffee you have.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I love big mugs, and I cannot lie. I don't know. I just and it's not even coffee.
Is anything in it?
Yes, sir. What if I was? This is incredible object work. I'm just pretending. I'm really pretending, because in improv, it's called object work, where you have to like hold it as if it's a certain weight, and really, no, it's a smoothie. Because I worked out this morning and I was rushing around, and now I'm having my little protein smoothie post-workout. Look at that humble brag right off the top. Shit.
I dig it. I like it. Okay. Before we talk about you, Jen, and what you do, there's a couple of things on the Authentic Ginger podcast that we do. So one of those is to give redhead facts, which Darren will do at the end of the show today. And I always do like some sort of celebrity, something or other. But because you're a comedian, I thought that we could talk about redhead comedians for just a minute.
Sure.
But it's going to be kind of a game.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the joke.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me, between the two of you, you and Darren, if you can figure out what redhead comedian said it.
Okay.
I've only got three. And I'll tell you, it's either Kathy Griffin, Carrot Top, obviously, or Conan.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That helps me a lot. Maybe.
I thought it might. Yeah. I didn't want to make it too hard. Okay. So here's your first one. The comedian said, "The street in the center of town was Butts Road. I stole the sign because this is clearly where assholes live."
Kathy Griffin.
Does sound like Kathy, doesn't it?
Conan O'Brien.
No, guys, it was Carrot Top.
Oh, come on. Why is that?
Yes.
I thought you were going to do a prop joke for Carrot Top. So
It should have been. I would just like pull out my Carrot Top hat and put it on. No, thanks. And I shouldn't have been telling you who said what, because by the time we get to the last one, you're going to know who it was.
Oh, yeah, right.
Anywho, we won't do it for the last two. Here's the next one. "I'm always listening and watching. My ears like a boom mic and judging. Frankly, I am constantly fucking judging."
I know who that is, but I won't say it. Or should I? Conan.
Okay.
I think it's Conan.
I think it's Conan too. I'm going to go with Conan for a second time.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys the last one and then I'll tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
Scientists announced that they've located the gene for alcoholism. Scientists say that they found it at a party because it was talking way too loudly.
Carrot Top.
I don't know. Is this a trick thing? I guess I'll say Kathy Griffin.
Wow. Okay. The second one was Kathy.
Okay.
She's the judgy bitch.
Right.
Oh, okay. I second guessed myself when yeah.
And then Conan was actually the one that said that about alcoholism and science.
Oh, there you go. I don't know.
So,
it goes to show you that either one of those people could have done those jokes and sold them in the way of their style. Because Kathy, that's not an obvious Kathy Griffin joke, because often she doesn't really have jokes. Like, she writes a lot because this is my observation of her. Because I remember I used to live in New York, and there was these two guys that had come in and said, I was serving, and they said, "Oh, we're going to go see Kathy Griffin. We don't want to go and see," I think it was Chelsea Handler, because last time we saw Chelsea Handler, she didn't write enough new material. But people don't understand that most comedians it takes a long time to write new material. If you go and see them 6 months after you saw them, there's a good chance it's going to be similar material. But right. Kathy Griffin, he says every single time it's different. Well, to me, my observation is she's more stream of consciousness, and she is just she just kind of has funny conversations. I'm not saying she doesn't have any jokes, but you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have never seen any of them, but if I had to pick one, I would go see Conan because I don't know how much. Never been one for prop comedy.
Yeah.
Carrot Top has kind of had his heyday, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not. I mean, that's one thing in the comedy circles. Like, you're not judged, but it's not cool to be a prop comic.
Ouch. Yeah.
Like, but you know what? Say what you want. That guy's laughing all the way to the bank. And I think there's something really awesome about making money too. Okay. I don't need to be the purest comic at the back of the room, broke as hell. Like, I'm okay to sell out once in a while for $1.
Right.
Don't isolate that clip.
Yeah, that's right.
No problem. So Jen, let's take it back then. Let's learn about you and growing up with red hair and then becoming a comedian. Where did this all come from?
Well, it can't be that shocking, right?
It's not
really. Like, even the fact that you could find that many redheads that are well known enough in comedy to be able to point them out, because I didn't know if it was going to be Louis C.K. He's also a redhead. I'm trying to think of others that are redheads right now, but I don't know. I'm sure a lot of redheads have had to deal with bullying or teasing. I got teased, and I don't know if you guys can tell me. You've done some research on redheads more than I have. Is it also a trait to be sensitive?
100%.
Okay, because I find I'm quite sensitive. Like, I'm tough, but I take things to heart. Like, when people tease me as a kid, I would get very hurt. And I think maybe it's a defense mechanism to joke about things. And I definitely got teased a lot. I don't think I wish I had my comedy skills and confidence back then, so I could just, like right now, if someone heckled me in a comedy club, I know how to handle them, and they do not heckle for long because they realize, okay, I'm going to lose here. Like, this person knows what she's doing, and she's going to embarrass the shit out of me. So yeah, I wish I had those skills back then. Right. But I think it probably had some kind of a connection with it. And I also think now I do keynote speaking, and one of the messages that I give to people is, I've realized, like, I've started over 20 years ago doing stand-up, and I realized over the years that it's been a coping mechanism for me in my life. Humor. It's helped me process things. So I joke about being a redhead on stage. People laugh, and then I feel less, it feels like less of a heavy issue for me. And I think it's kind of, even though I'm 100% happy with being a redhead now, 100%, and that's the honest truth. I mean, sometimes I wish I had olive skin. It's more flattering than to be Whitey McWhiterson. But, I'm comfortable with who I am, and I know that, like, I don't color my hair to this day, which is great because all of my friends have been coloring their hair for years, and they have gray hair. My hair is still red, and people get compliments on it all the time. Now I like it, but at one point, whoa.
Were you so on that, do you recall deflecting any negativity coming towards you? Like, did you deflect in a comedic way if you think about it now?
Well, I think specifically to being a redhead, it formed who I am, and having to, like, feeling different. I'm sure played a role in becoming a comedian, and also the sensitive characteristic, but also I was very bold. I heard I was bold every single day as a child. Every single day, I talked back to my teachers. When I was in kindergarten, I actually left the class because I didn't want to be at school, and I found the principal's office. And my mom tells the story, and she said the principal was laughing his head off inside because I just walked in all red cheeked, like red hair, short little mushroom cut, and I showed up, and I was like, "Are you the boss of this school?" I actually did that 5 years old. And he was like, I guess so. I'm the principal. And I came in and I pounded on his desk and I said, I don't like the school. I want to see my mother. Take me home. And, like, from the day one at school, just nonstop bold. So I think, like, the combination of wanting to be heard because I was silenced a lot, high spirit, like redheaded kids are often very spirited. They're, you hear these nice euphemisms for bratty. And, and so, I think the combination of being silenced because I wanted to be heard and to do my own thing, and I was spirited, combined with feeling different. I always felt like I was not fitting in with people. I think that's, that goes hand in hand with being a redhead.
So when did you first get on a stage? When did you first decide, like, this is it, comedy is what I want to do?
Well, I always wanted to perform, and then I had a friend who was a comic but had just started a year before and said, I think you can do it. So I tried amateur night in brace yourself, 98.
Ooh.
Wow.
I know. How's that possible? I know.
A couple years ago. That's it.
I know. How's that possible? I know. Really good anti-wrinkle cream. No, but I started amateur night back then in my 20s. And I started and I was really nervous. And I just continued with it. I thought, if I can get better and make a little bit of money doing this, I'll just keep going, see where it takes me.
So that brings up an interesting question too. Like, from what I've seen over the years of comedy, and the trenches that you have to go into, it's very competitive. It's not an easy industry to be in. Is there enough money to go around when you're getting started, and even then some, to have a decent living? Because
No.
were you touring around? No. Okay.
No.
I know. Yeah, that's what I wanted to know as well. Like,
but
what drives that?
Well, the way I see it, and I wish people had explained it to me at the beginning, like this is, if you want to be a doctor, it takes 10 years. And in the beginning years, you're not making any money. Like, you're not going to make money and you probably don't even really make money until you're about year 15, after the beginning of school, because you have to pay off your debts and school, and not everybody has all that money for all that school. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and, to be fair, like, there's more of a guaranteed income when you become a doctor. Okay, yes, touche. But if you have any kind of business sense and want to make money, you can figure it out in comedy. It's not easy, but
right.
You can do it. But I didn't have money for a long time. Time. Yeah.
So touring, where has comedy taken you? Like how far has comedy taken you as far as, area wise? Like, have you traveled all around the world? Have you traveled into Canada, into the US? Those road stories, you must have a few.
Yes.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is Israel and Egypt. I entertained the Canadian Armed Forces there at Christmas time.
Amazing.
It was very emotional, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's quite an experience. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're, sacrificing so much of their life to be there, and they're missing their family. It's Christmas time. So we all flew down there, practiced in just outside of Toronto in Trenton, I believe. And then, so that was, I think it was 2003 that I did that. And flew down there with a bunch of other entertainers. And to this day, if I see those people, we bonded so hardcore. And I mean, I hung out with a Bedouin family in the desert and rode a camel. It was head spinningly culture shock. Like, I've never had culture shock before. That was insane.
And in that experience, are you the type of person that can take that experience and say, there's some material in this that I can bring back? Or was it too much culture that it just didn't deserve any material to bring back with you?
Well, that's a good question, because it's true. Sometimes I don't want to joke about certain things. Right. Some things either are, rarely is there something that's too hurtful or too intense or too special that I want to keep it for myself or whatever. That's really rare. Most of the time I just want to joke about everything. Yeah, there was, I don't think I tell stories with my friends about, and people that I just talk to, one-on-one. About things that have happened on that trip, but I don't think I actually have any material about that trip.
And that's probably a good thing, right? I mean, you'll keep that as something that brings back a really awesome memory, and again, the culture that you experience. So it's not surprising that you would keep that close to your chest and not make light of it in a fun way. So
right,
you're sort of deemed as someone who writes material that's relatable. What does that mean?
I feel like we have more in common than we have difference. And I wish that we all realized that and thought that way, because obviously there'd be less war and less pain, because we're all more the same than we are different, for sure, as human beings. And so if I talk about something that happened to me that was hard, and I have a funny twist on it, when people laugh in the audience, they're laughing because on some level they relate to it in their own life. So they might not have experienced that exact thing, but they can relate to it from their own life and experiences. So really, I'm relatable, but a lot of comedy's relatable unless you're off the wall. Like there's certain styles of comedians that are more like, trying to think of examples, like someone who's quirky or like quirky one-liners. Even then, there's something usually you can hang on to. I feel like every comic is a little bit relatable, but yeah, I talk about family. Everybody's got a family. Most people have a family. Most people have, dysfunctional families. Most people have weird relationships with their parents. Like, right. I don't have many friends that are like, no, everything was perfect. And, and I don't have any issues at all.
It's said on your website too that you're an observational style of comedian. Does that kind of come into the relatable format as well, or is that something that's a little bit different that people would recognize? Is it something that's recognizable? You're on stage, we're in the audience.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard for me to actually pinpoint and explain who I am. In some ways, I envy Carrot Top for that, because it's like, I'm a prop comic, or, like Larry the Cable Guy, who's not very respected either, but is also hugely famous and extremely wealthy. But he can go, I'm Larry the Cable Guy, that cable guy that sees the world through it's easy to like pinpoint it. Sometimes I feel like I just call myself an observational comic because people are like, tell me what kind of comic you are. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to really explain it, I guess, but I think about it, and yes, I observe the world. I see things in a different way probably than many people do, because I just maybe feeling different, maybe feeling like a bit of a loner, even though I can, I can be, when I want to turn on the social charm, I can do it. I can, if I really wanted to be out there and mingling, I could, but I find it takes a lot of energy. So being the oddball, the redhead in the group, like, hey, I'll be the redhead. I'm the one person that, often doesn't have another person around them. Maybe I'm sitting back at the back of the room observing a lot. Maybe I'm observing things in a quirky, weird way because I've had the chance to feel on my own looking around. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Do comics have to have a label as to what kind of comic you are?
Like, they don't have to have one, but often you're asked it just because you have to put it in your bio or description, or you'll be interviewed by people. What kind of people don't know what to ask comedians sometimes. Like you guys do, I can tell. You actually know comedy and are fans of comedy, so you know how to ask the questions. But sometimes you'll go on a radio show and they're really nice and everything, but like, maybe they're not fans of comedy, and they'll just be like, so what kind of comedian are you? And it's like,
here we go again.
Yeah. Like,
a funny one. I'm funny. That's I am a radio host, actually. And I often wonder, because when you have a job like this, which, is similar, you always have to be on. People expect you to be on. Yeah. Like, you can be walking through Walmart and someone recognizes you and they expect, talk to me in your radio voice. Well, it's just my voice. This is just the way I talk. And do you find you get a lot of pressure with that too, of like having to be on at a family event or whatever, you've got to be the entertainer?
Oh my gosh. My aunt one time asked me we had a family barbecue. I hadn't seen the family in a long time, probably 5 years. We all get together. We're in her backyard, and she's like, do you want to maybe do 5 minutes of jokes back here? I'm like, I would rather kill myself right now. That sounds like my actual worst nightmare. It's one thing to pull out a guitar and noodle around on it. I'm not going to get up and... No, that's so weird. They'd just be staring at me. Anyway, no. And then she was like offended.
Did she realize that most of your jokes are about them? Like, you don't want to pull those out as a family event.
Yeah. What's the deal with ants? Yeah.
That's interesting then, because this brings up another question that do you have different show setups or whatever for different shows? In other words, do you have a catalog of this is my 30-minute show and I'll always do this 30-minute show. This is my 20-minute show and I'll always do this 20-minute show, different material in each one. Do you have caches of shows lined up that you can pull from, or is it more I know the audience, I'm reading the audience, so I'm going to throw that joke at you?
Yeah, sort of. Usually at any given time, overall, I have about 20 minutes that I really like. That's kind of always my new 20 minutes that's sort of circulating. But I have a core amount of jokes that I do for corporates that I know are tried and true and are squeaky clean. And I know they're going to do well because I know that they're not offensive. But so yeah, I sort of do, but I like to pick the material that I have fun doing because that's the most important thing. And one of the common questions that people have often, which is kind of related to the question you just asked, was you must read the room, right? You must read the room and change your material according to it. Yes and no. I overthought that for many years. And what I've discovered that works for me, and probably for everyone, is if you do you the most authentic you can, it almost doesn't matter because you're being you. I mean, it's like a true artist, and a lot of comics would laugh at that, like we're artists, but we are. I see myself because, if you look at a piece of art that the artist that is so, revered, I'm sure the artist didn't go, what do they want to see here?
Never.
Right.
Like, well, that's tapping into the wrong source for me. And that never worked for me for the first, many years. When I would audition for Just for Laughs or audition for showcase for a TV spot or whatever, anytime I did that and I was thinking, what do they want to see? It never worked out. And I learned that the hard way. That was a lot of times of being told no, 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 to realize, you know what? This feels so bad to be turned down, especially when I've chosen material I thought they would like. I might as well be 100% me. And if I get turned down, I can say, well, I could only be me.
Right.
So if I get turned down, then I get turned down. But it feels so crappy to be rejected when you've tried to get them to love you.
Right. Totally. That's great. That's a great nugget for anyone listening to who's looking to get into comedy or is in the start of in comedy.
I feel like thanks for saying that. I feel like it would apply to most jobs, actually. And I think not even just jobs, life. Like if you are authentic with someone, it's so refreshing. Have you ever met someone who's like, you can tell they're just them and they're not trying to put on a social, we all have some social mask to some degree, but like the closer you can get to that, the better. So yeah, I change. I usually have my go-to bits that I really like, that I know are going to do well, and that I'm going to do. Like I just worked in Montreal at a comedy club, not last weekend, but the weekend before, Comedy Nest. The Comedy Nest is great. I did jokes that were like somebody came to see my show because they had heard me on The Debaters on CBC Radio. And I was like, ooh, because I did like jokes about Brazilian waxing and dick jokes and all kinds of stuff because it's fun to do that stuff in clubs. Right. That's where you can really let loose. Like nothing is held back. So that I have a certain section for, and I also have a different, like I have a laissez-faire on stage in a comedy club, but I have my corporate set that I do actually way more often than I do a comedy club set, that I have tried and true. This will not offend anybody, and it's going to get laughs. Right. So I definitely have a core that I do there. Yeah.
This episode was brought to you by Authentic Ginger Clothing. For more information on Authentic Ginger Clothing, go to www.authenticginger.com. You're back at it. Tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
So I do Zoom shows. And like I said, most of my work is corporate. Most of my work is clean. And I mostly am a clean comedian. Like I joke about Brazilian waxes and all that. But that's such a small part of what I do. I do corporate comedy through Zoom. I haven't done any events other than comedy clubs live since 2019. Because this whole pandemic started in 2020, right? So it was early 2020. So yeah, I haven't done anything, I think, a live event in front of people since 2019 winter. So yeah, it's crazy. And things just keep getting canceled and rescheduled. But with Zoom, it's great because I can do these corporate Zooms and keynote speeches, which are motivational talks with jokes in them. So I like it because it keeps the audience engaged because they want to hear the jokes. Where I think a lot of times the conferences, the speakers are not necessarily experienced speakers, but because I've been doing comedy for so long, I know how to talk. I know how to do it. I know how to keep people's attention. Comedy is very like you have to really make sure that you're getting your laughs as much as possible. Otherwise it can go very bad. And I've had that happen. So I do Zoom keynote speeches where I talk about how incorporating more humor and laughter into your life can reframe stress, and how that, like, I have this thing I say where I'm a positive person and I almost always see the silver lining in things, but I also see the funny lining because almost everything can be joked about. Almost everything, like 98% of things can be joked about. And when you joke about them, it adds levity. And you don't realize it's doing that. But like I talked about earlier, looking back on my life as a comedian, I realized that it's really been therapeutic for me, like actually therapeutic, where I didn't realize it. But as I was saying these things on stage, talking about, for instance, being a redhead, or being broke, or having a weird family, all these things. And when people would laugh, it made me feel like I was less alone. It also changed in my brain how I identified with that issue. It's like before it was like a thing I kind of sat with quietly. Then I say it out loud, everybody laughs. Then all of a sudden, now the memory of that thing, it now has something else attached to it rather than a darkness.
I love the way you go around that. That's such a really great way to think about it. And I can imagine with these keynote speeches that you're doing now, because not just since 2020, but there has been this like spin on, self-help, mental health and wellness and all that jazz. I can see that really tying in really well because so many people know that humor can be a defense mechanism, but don't realize how they could spin it into a helpful way.
Yeah, it seems like funny because when I first started doing keynote speeches, which was probably about 7 years ago, I thought I felt funny about doing them because I'm like, who am I to be telling people how to live? Well, first of all, I've been reading self-help books for 25 years and I love them. I feel like, fine. Yeah, I do have a university degree, but it's like, I'm not a therapist, but I've been working on myself for 25 years and I've accidentally noticed how humor has benefited me and helped me gain confidence. I feel like we need to also be reminded. I think all of us know this inside, but the reason I keep reading self-help books is because it's like a muscle, like going to the gym. Like you always have to remember it. You have to read it all the time because if you stop doing it, you kind of you rest on your laurels. You like, I don't know what it is about us humans, but if we don't work on ourselves, we're just lazy, Netflix watching, wine drinking, snack eating, napping maniacs. But enough about me at the beginning of the pandemic. That's all I did.
That was me before we hit record today. So yeah.
Yeah. So Jen, what is your go-to? What is your go-to wellness book? What's the one you go back to?
One that I have read a couple times was Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass. And she has one that's about money. You are a badass at making money. It's really good. And she's funny in it. And she's different because she swears in it. And because she realized she was also really into trying to get her life together and liked self-help, and she realized there was an opening in the market for someone who just spoke real, like instead of being all corny, like swear, be real, be relatable, be honest. The 4 agreements. I actually have a joke about that because because like I'm always embarrassing myself. Like that's one angle I talk about in my set. I said to somebody, oh, my favorite self-help book is The 4 Agreements. And oh my God, The 4 Agreements. It's a Bible. It's like, I could never live without it. The 4 Agreements. And they're like, oh, what are the 4 agreements? And I could only remember 3. So embarrassing.
Oh man.
And for real, I was like, oh, what is that 4th one? But I went on and on and on about how it was like life-changing and like 4. It's not like there's 12. It's 4. Anyway.
So do you think that that's a possible path for you? Do you think that you would consider writing a book?
Definitely. I definitely want to do that. It seems so overwhelming, but I know it's something I could do. It's just, I think I'm a little ADD, and like sitting down and writing, like I would love to finish the book, but the process of doing the writing,
yeah,
I think I'd need an editor, like really hands-on editor that would help out a lot. But yeah, I would love to.
I wanted to know maybe it's when you start or maybe at some point halfway through, but like, is your goal when you first start this career to like get in front of the biggest crowd possible? Now, whether it's like with comedy or with keynote, and does there come a time when it doesn't matter who's in the audience? It's just the fact that you get to be doing what you love.
When I first started out, I was shocked anybody would want to listen to anything I said. I was shocked anyone would pay me. I couldn't believe it. Like I didn't know any. I was like, oh, like I see some new comics now. They're like, yeah, like I saw one person show up at an open mic. It was their first set and they were recording it to send it to like a talk show to see if they could get on an American talk show. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, it's weird how everybody's different. Like I went into it very, hope that it works. I don't know. So I knew I had a lot to learn. So I didn't care what size the crowd was, although obviously, yes, you want to. If it's like now, I don't care if there's only 10 people in the crowd. It's not going to be as electric. But on the other hand, sometimes 20 people in a crowd can be really fun. But that's talking from a point of view that of a comic that's done, like I've done so many different shows. Like it's crazy. So now I'm not scared. Just if you're laughing, great. Oh wow, that's amazing. You're even laughing. Incredible.
Yeah. I feel like as I've gotten older, that kind of comes with age too, right? Like the fucks you have to give go. And then you just realize like I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good at what I do. So hopefully you get a chance to enjoy that kind of thing. Yes.
It's kind of a combination of the proven success combined with not caring at all what people think is great. And that's because like if I've already booked, a half-hour comedy show and it took me a lot of auditions to finally get it, and I know like obviously if they're not laughing at a Legion in Red Deer, like I'm like, I've done a fucking TV show, okay? Like Bob with your like, baseball cap on backwards over there, 25 years old, like not laughing at my bits. I don't really care. Like you're not my demographic, number one. Like you've had no life experience. If I was 25 and I listened to me, I still might laugh, okay? But like if you're a 25-year-old guy listening to me, I don't know. Like unless you're really mature, I feel like you're just like, ooh, like, talking about farts. I don't know. Like I just
That's such a good point, though. That's something that I didn't think of, that comedians, of course, would have demographics. Yes.
If you're authentic, it doesn't matter. But maturity does play a role. Like I remember being in my early 20s, I was a twit. You know what I mean? The stuff I talked about even on stage, it was like, oh my God. I mean, you can always see like some promise in new comics, even if they don't have much life experience. Vulnerability, authenticity, they're trying. You can see that they have some kind of nugget or bit of potential. But other people and even people in the audience, some people go into the audience even if they're not young and they go in with the wrong attitude. Make me laugh.
On top of being a comedian, on top of being one of the most well-known 25 people in nation's capital of Ottawa, you are also a co-host of the Julian Dion Show with Jen Grant, who is you. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to be on that show and invited to be on that show last year. Where did that stem from? And tell our listeners what that show is all about.
Julian Dion is my fiance. He's a comedian as well. And he started a podcast years ago and then sort of put it on the back burner. And then when the pandemic hit, he decided to start it up again because all of our work got canceled and we're just sitting around the house. So he figured, why not? And I was sitting on the couch while he did that and just, having coffee and reading my book or something. And then he would be doing something and I would go, blah, blah, blah. Like I would just pipe up like his little sidekick. And then he said, why don't I get you a mic and you can sit on the couch and just say what you want in the mic because he was in his little mini studio behind me with in a separate room. So then we did that for a while. And then we just decided to do it every morning. We would do this podcast Monday to Friday, checking in with people and, having some kind of connection to people and keeping us busy. Yeah. So then we just kept it going. And now we're taking a little hiatus to figure out and reassess what we're going to do because we're both starting to get busier again. And it's really hard to do, especially a morning show when you're doing shows at night. So we were trying to juggle everything, but it's called the Julian Dion Show with Jen Grant. And so we kept the same name, and then I'm kind of an addition at the end because I don't need to be like, it's not the Julian Jen Show. It's fine. And I'm just like an added little bonus. And
the flair, you're the flair.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really good podcast. I'm shocked at how much we can talk. We actually don't we talk, but we've been a couple for 12 years. So it's like, you know what it's like. Mm-hmm. You don't sit around and talk concentrated for an hour with one another. Like not really and there'll be some chunks of silence. I can't believe what we can do on that podcast. We're just like, blah, blah, blah. Like we just talk like crazy.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he also a redhead?
He's not.
He's not. He's just got the ginger beard going on.
He's got a very...
It's not often that you see two redheads together. That's why I asked.
I know, and I don't want to... I am very adamant about him not being a redhead because I feel it's incestuous. I dated a redhead in high school, and we were making out one time, and someone said, oh my God, are you guys brother and sister? I'm like, what the hell? We're making out, psycho. What do you think? Yeah, we're brother and sister. Don't you do this with your brother? Like, so weird.
It's so weird.
So weird.
It's so weird.
But I've never. No, he's definitely not a redhead, and redheads know what I mean. Like, a redhead. Like, I know who is an actual redhead. I can tell. He doesn't have freckles. He doesn't have he has a very ginger beard, and because his hair is blonde, it looks like he's a redhead.
It overtakes, yeah.
Yeah. And it might have like a golden kind of like, you know what I mean? It's not like white blonde, so people are like, you're crazy, Jen, he's a ginger. I'm like, he's not a redhead.
We're going to take this to the lab.
He's not.
We're going to take this. We're going to settle this one way or the other.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It was just the beard throwing me off.
Well,
honestly, I've only seen the picture, so I can't judge.
Right. And also, until he had a beard, 0 people in his entire life ever said that. 0. He has never been called a redhead until he had a red beard. Boom. Okay.
Isn't that funny?
Case closed. Yeah. If I was a lawyer and there was a court and there was a case going on, that's what I would close with. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Boom. Yeah.
Okay.
And no one is...
It's settled then.
Yeah. And there's no other redheads in his family. Not that matters because I'm the only redhead in my family. So
that's interesting. You don't have any redhead siblings, really?
No.
Wow.
No.
That's impressive.
And my parents aren't.
You were truly the outsider.
I was, yeah.
The red sheep.
I actually never thought about that before.
I never
thought about that before, even in my family. And you know what? I've always felt that way. Don't tell them, but I always felt a little bit better than them. No, but I felt like different for sure. Interesting. So that is very interesting. This is like
earth-shattering moments here.
Therapy and a podcast interview. You guys can invoice me after if you want.
Okay. So Darren, I think it's probably time that you bust out your redhead facts since we just were on the redhead kick there. Let's see what you got for us today.
I mean, today it's a little bit more of a statement today. And I wanted to have a little chat about it. So it's a fact, but it's not. It's a statement. Here it is. Here's the first one anyway. Lucky redhead women have more sex than any other hair color. That's according to a study by a German sex researcher who found that women with red hair had sex more often. A similar English study found that redhead gals had sex on average of 3 times a week, while our blonde and brunette counterparts have it twice a week.
Sucks to be them, huh?
Well, I don't know if Tosh can relate to this, but guys are creepy when they like redheads. They're like really into redheads. Like it feels like they're undressing you with their eyes. Like they're like, I love redheads. Like it's like, ew, okay, calm down, grossy. Yeah.
Is that true? Do you get that vibe?
Like a fetish.
How many redheads out of really? Yeah. Okay. I've been wondering about that. You know, like if that's
like
a real thing.
Yeah.
It's like, you know how people can make money selling pictures of their feet? You could make money selling pictures of just your hair. They don't care about your face. It's like send me a picture of your freckles and your hair. It's really gross.
I guess I'm glad I didn't bring that up, but I did.
Well, maybe it has to do with the high-spirited things, because the aspect of redheads too, because if we're more passionate about life, you know, maybe that's more fun to have sex with. I'm just going on a limb of a theory. That
is a perfect segue into the next fact. Redheads are traditionally funnier. Comedians in the 19th century used to don red wigs in order to appear funnier to their audiences.
Yeah, well, look at Lucille Ball.
Not a redhead.
Not even a redhead, yeah.
She dyed it to probably seem funnier. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that court jesters were always gingers. Not always, but most of the time. Yeah, way back in the day. So maybe it goes back to what we've been talking about through the show today, that we're funnier as a coping mechanism.
That's exactly, it was fitting that this fact was actually thought of prior to, and here we are talking about it through this entire show, which is really really interesting. And I kind of believe that. I really do believe that exists. And to me, that's a good reason. And Jen, you're a comedian. I mean, it all just kind of fits.
Yeah. I feel like also just being funny is like, I like funny people. Yeah, I like being around funny people. It's a colorful thing. It's a colorful personality. You know, maybe it all goes hand in hand. Like, I don't know. I to this day I haven't met like a drab redhead.
That's true. We're pretty vibrant. Maybe they do exist. I don't know, but I agree. I have yet to meet one.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah, that's a very good inference.
I like that. I'm going to put that a little bit higher on my high horse today. Well, Jen, before we let you go today, if someone wanted to hire you, to follow you, all that jazz, where are they going to find you for comedy and, of course, for your keynote speaking too?
Okay, so I have a website, jengrant.com, and do not confuse it with JENN Grant.com, who is also a Canadian entertainer who's very successful, and you've probably heard of her, you guys. Jen Grant is a singer in Halifax, and she's great, but don't book her. Book me.
Also pretty sure she's also a ginge. So
I know. It's so weird. Like we kind of look like, in the grand scheme, we look similar more than we look, you know. So it's kind of weird. So Jen Grant with 1 N is my website, and has all my information there. My email is on there, and it's jen@jengrant.com. I'm always looking for more followers on Instagram because I have not very many. I need to be more active on that. But so, hey, give me a follow on Instagram. It's Jen Grant Comedy. And so that's how you can find me. There's some videos on YouTube as well, and some on my website. You can check those out. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to my day.
Yeah, me too. Me too, guys. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. You've been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
Become a part of the Ginger Nation by liking, subscribing, following, and leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts.
This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.